What's up, and welcome to the Crude Oil Podcast, a weekly uncensored Edmonton Oilers podcast with your hosts, Sean and Greg. It is the Mark Messier episode of the Crude Oil Podcast. How do you like that, Sean?
It's taking me way too long to understand the fact that that's what you meant by Mark Messier. And for anybody else who's stupid like me, it's the number 11.
It is the end of a long weekend. Everyone's running a little bit slower today.
I'm running very slow.
Oh, man. Lots of hockey news to get to here today. We'll get into a lot of the rumors and stuff that kind of circulating. But first, just like to remind you guys to like, subscribe, follow us, share the podcast however you can. We were talking about it. Let's get to the housekeeping stuff. We're discussing here what our progression of this thing should be. Let's try that. And I think when we finally get the news through after the free agency, unless anything dire happens in probably the month afterwards, might take a bit of a hiatus just to, cleanse the brain and allow some creativity to flow, because we're going to be so busy coming up this next year. So,
well, unless people want to just hear us ramble on about Puljujarvi for the rest of the year, or the Evander Kane saga, or etc. news, we're going to run out of things to talk about. There's a little bit of news right now with free agency and the the draft coming up right away, but soon there's going to be very little news.
Yeah, I know last week I was talking about the dog days of summer, and then I realized, oh shit, we're not even there yet. Like, it's going to get slower, but I digress. Just wanted to go through today and go through some of the things that are floating around the league, and let's start at the back end of things. I guess way back, depending how far you go, but there's interest that popped up earlier this week from Kevin Weeks. I didn't even see where he reported this from. It could have been, the arcade. It could have been in the middle of a flight.
Why does he take videos of himself in the weirdest places breaking news?
I have no idea, but I love how he's the guy now.
He also doesn't know how to hold the camera properly. Where his head's in the bottom left corner of every video he takes. It's very weird.
Very true. Very true. So he had a post come out on Twitter on the 29th just saying to keep an eye out, hearing that Oilers goalie development coach, Sylvain Rodrigue, is getting attention across the league. A couple teams he tossed out were the Maple Leafs, the Red Wings, and the Kraken. And these are just places that have the goaltending vacancies. But my first question to you, Sean, is why the fuck is this guy being let go? Why do we still have a guy, maybe at the big leagues who could use a little bit of fresh air?
I mean, I think everybody would agree that it's time for a change in the goalie coach position. Not that I don't know whether or not it's his fault that our goalies have struggled over the years or not. I'm not going to lay blame, but they need to do something to change it, because I'm tired of goalies outside of the one season of Cam Talbot coming in here, playing poorly, going elsewhere, and having success.
Yeah, I think it's just frustrating. I went back and watched. Well, I don't know what I watched, but I listened to our last podcast, and I know I shit a little bit on Dustin Schwartz.
It's not hard to do.
Yeah, I don't know to your point, I don't know if it's necessarily fair. It's just I'm getting frustrated with all the issues we're having in the back end, and with no big, prospect change on the way. Skinner seems there, maybe not quite ready, but whatever they're building in Bayco seems to be up and coming, which is kind of why I'm well, if it's working down there, why can't we make it work up here?
Well, I'd be interested to see that, because he's pumped out some pretty, assuming this guy has been working with a lot of our rookie goaltenders. I don't know the ins and outs of exactly what he does on a day-to-day basis. But he worked with Brossoit, he worked with Skinner, let's just say he worked with Rodrigue, his son, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little bit more Oilers nepotism for us right there. But with that being said, like they've all at least appear to be on track to have either made an impact in the NHL, whether it's in a backup role, or are on pace to do so as well.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he could fill in that role, but I don't know if Edmonton's looking to necessarily replace Schwartz anytime soon, because for as much as we like to talk about it, about like why is he still there, the team itself doesn't even mention his name. You barely even hear it in the media besides somebody randomly like us bring it up for 5 minutes and then it fades into obscurity again.
Yeah, it's one of those things I'm not really expecting to change, but it was interesting, and I laughed too. Like, of course he's Olivier's dad, just of course. But I mean, if he's generating interest, and we've seen kind of Olivier take that next step, we were seeing it with Stuart Skinner. It's hard not to look at that success and think there might be something. But it was probably the smallest story that broke over this past week. But just sticking in the net minding position, some more rumors floating with Elliot Friedman. He was talking about how he feels that there's, I think this was more of a gut feeling, but he felt like there was a connection between Jack Campbell and the Edmonton Oilers. What would be your thoughts if he came over? Like, what do you even look at a contract when he comes over?
If his contract would probably, I would think anyway, look similar to Koskinen's last contract. So I would think 3 to 5 year range between 4.5 to 5.5 million, and I wouldn't be interested in signing him for anything more than that. With that being said, I'm not overly interested in Jack Campbell, for the reason being that he wasn't able to really get Toronto over the hump, for example, and Toronto plays a very similar style as we do. So he's not exactly going to have ace defensemen in front of him playing like a great defensive system. Not that next season's going to be different. It could be, mind you. But history says that this team doesn't play the best defense, so you need to be able to stand on your head. And I don't know if Campbell's capable of doing that in the long term.
Well, it's interesting you bring up the contract terms, because the contract that I saw floated today, which was, I'll pose the question straight to you. If the Oilers land Jack Campbell at a 3-year, $5 million per cap hit, do you sign him?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
Just because 3 years makes it a lot more enticing to me. Because that would give 3 years of him as the starter, Skinner as the backup, to hopefully mature Skinner into being that starter. Versus a lot of these goalies who are going to be looking for like 6+ year contracts. And then Campbell might be too. He's worked his ass off to get to where he is. And I think at this point he deserves a big, long contract. I just don't know if I want Edmonton to be giving him that. But it's hard to pass up a free asset if he's interested in coming here.
Well, it's I don't even know. Like 3 years is a long time. Like, what did was Koskinen's 4?
It was 3, I think.
Was it 3? Like, that felt like an eternity.
Well, that's because it was a bad contract the day it was signed.
Right.
When it's a bad contract, you can't stop talking about it, and we didn't stop talking about it for 3 years. Hell, we're even still talking about it now that it's over.
Yeah, I don't know. 3 years would be a little too much for my liking, but again, why would Jack Campbell come to Edmonton? I don't see the fit. I don't know if it makes sense for Edmonton, but I mean, I'm not Ken Holland. I'm not the guy that, hands the checkbook over. So,
well, the thing with these rumors is that like Edmonton's going to be linked to every goalie and their mother for the rest of the offseason until they make a move. So until I see one of these that's more serious, like the NHL Network was the ones who tweeted about this here, and it's just like, will Edmonton scoop him up? And it's like, I don't know, like, is there anyone who actually thinks that? Because I think even Friedman had mentioned that he could see the fit, which I think anybody can see the fit with Edmonton and a goaltender who could be a starter.
Yeah. Well, and the common name that's also being thrown out is Ville Husso, but he's being thrown across the entire league. Like, another one of those goalies that is going to get paid this summer for how many games?
Ville Husso doesn't deserve a long-term contract, in my opinion. I think he's played like 75 games or something like that. And yes,
57.
Well, there you go. I just had the numbers reversed.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's played not very many games, and I don't think he deserves it. It would be similar, in my opinion, to signing like Mikko Koskinen to a big contract after his one season.
Yeah. and he's been, that's the one that I really scratch my head at. I think of all of the goalies that keep getting brought up. Maybe it's just a little bit of bias, being scared of jumping from one big fin to another. I don't know, but it's that's my goalie scares. We'll see what winds up happening. There's lots to shake out, but yeah, just that Jack Campbell rumor was something that kind of, I don't know. I don't think that that's going to work out, but hey, I might be eating crow here in 2 weeks. Just jumping into our next topic that we saw. Let's spend some time on this because there seems to be 8 different sides to this fucking story coming out with Jesse Puljujärvi. You've got his side of the story. You've got the translation being told. You've got the rumors that are going on. You're getting Mark Spector saying that they both want out and they both want to leave. And
you can ignore anything Spector or Matheson say on any of these issues. I'm wholeheartedly under the impression that they are like driving him out of the city at this point.
Honestly,
they're the only ones tweeting about how much like Puljujärvi doesn't want to be here and how much Edmonton doesn't want him here. But I feel like if you ask anybody else, we want to keep him. It's just like the expectations on him are still going to be high regardless.
I have kind of an issue with our media. Maybe kind of is pretty lenient, but like, I'm with you. I feel like everyone's like, oh, the fans are driving out like all these players. Yeah, we've got a pretty tough fan base. We've got a lot of critics. Like, we're just a bunch of Joe Blows trying to put together a podcast, but we're not the people who people listen to right now, right? You've got reporters, like professional journalists, coming out and literally just shitting all over players. Yeah, I get they're trying to sell stories. They're trying to get clicks. They're trying to, build some sort of, plot or arc towards the Oilers season every single year. But there's just so much shit that comes out, and I feel like half the time when there's credit due, it's like, oh yeah, but it's Connor McDavid. You know what I mean?
Like, I just saw a post the other day that I was reading about that showed that like Puljujärvi has the best like goals for percentage and expected goals for percentage out of any other player not playing with McDavid, like when playing away from McDavid. Like exponentially better than everybody in each category.
That's the thing, is like Puljujärvi, that's why I don't want to give up on him, is because his advanced stats are unreal. And they've been proven in a bunch of different categories. But I swear to God, if the Oilers put a statistics or a data analysis team together for any kind of advanced stats, like guys like Mark Spector and Jim Matheson would shit a brick. It just...
Well, I really have to wonder about the whole Woodcroft contract saga that was going on, that Woodcroft wasn't trying to push for more analytics in this department. And like, I'm not saying analytics are the be all end all, because if you look at Toronto, they have the biggest and most expensive analytics department, and you can see how far that's got them. But you can't make decisions based off of analytics, but they can support your positions for different arguments.
That's what I mean.
They need to be able to like look at that. Like, yes, Puljujärvi has struggled to score. He looks a little lost out there sometimes. Nobody's going to argue that. But you also can't argue the impact that he has on the team when he's like playing well.
One thing before I jump onto our next topic, you brought up the coaching. It sounds like there's a bit of a delay in the assistant coaching contracts for Dave Manson and Gulutzan. Brian Wiseman's looking like he's leaving. That's per Daniel Nugent-Bowman. Daniel Nugent-Hopkins, as Ken Holland calls him. But you got to wonder if those guys are also, trying to pull for that. The staff is gonna be the way that Jay Woodcroft wants it, and I think we're gonna see a changing of the tide.
I think the staff is pulling, like, I'm purely speculating.
Yeah.
But I think they're pulling for a lot more autonomy than maybe Ken Holland or Bob Nicholson, for example, are willing to give them. Well, just because they want to have more of a say on the team and the on-ice product, but that's why you hire the coach.
Exactly. And you look at the success that Woodcroft's team had down in Bakersfield. You can't tell me that you had somebody, pulling his strings on who's playing every single night. And if that's the basis for him getting the contract mixed within the success that they found towards the end of the year with him at the NHL level, like he got to X place down in Bakersfield by himself. And by himself, I mean his team, his coaching staff, like by his strategy.
Well, it's just on his own merit.
That too, yeah.
So with that being said, I'm just hoping that it all works out, because I'd hate to see us lose Manson or Goldson, for example, because hopefully they're not arguing over a small dollar amount, because I know the Oilers can throw money away like candy. So
that's a good comparison.
Well, you think back to, like, and I know it's a player instead of a coach, but you think back to the Ryan Smith thing, where we traded him over for like $500,000. It's like he's the heart and face of the team, and you trade him away because you're like, we don't want to pay him that. Like, just fucking pay him that.
Yeah, that was before the salary cap era too, wasn't it?
I think it was right at the cusp.
Right at the cusp,
near the beginning, because it started in 05-06. So, and that was 2008, 2009 when he got traded. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't like. He was our best player, and we didn't sign him because we fought over $500,000. You pay your best players, and you fight for money on the fourth liners.
Yeah. Speaking of cap space and issues, the Edmonton Oilers have extended the deadline for Mike Smith.
You
and
read
Duncan
that like
Keith.
They just signed somebody to a contract. Just
yeah.
The Edmonton Oilers have extended.
I just thought it was kind of a
the retirement deadline.
Yeah, I don't like the fact. Let me get my thoughts together. That's in a cohesive group here. I don't like that they extended their contract expectations for next year past the NHL draft. Because if they've got room to move, like, wouldn't you like to know whether or not you have, $8 million tied up in your salary cap next year?
I think...
Or of room, sorry?
I think, yes, that would be nice, and that was their intention to begin with. I think they wanted to have that decision by July 1st, so they could decide, are we going to need to, trade away contracts? Are we going to need to buy out somebody like Cassian? And now they're pushing that further, but at the same time, I'd rather them not rush and make a very, rushed and pressured decision that makes the team worse in the long run.
Well, and the other possibility is that Smith returns, but on LTIR. And I put returns in quotation marks because it's another way to bury his contract, essentially.
Well, I could see it more so just because, when you think about why would Smith retire when he's promised $2+ million? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'd suck it up for one more year for an extra $2 million.
Yeah.
God, I'd live in a box for $2 million.
I was just thinking of all the different things that I would do for that money, but I digress. The other thing that I just wanted to chat about was just the recap stuff with Duncan Keith. Obviously, I don't expect him to retire, so it's much less of a solid point, but there seems to be still some inconsistency across the league when you consider the Ryan McDonough trade in Tampa, moving him to Nashville, and apparently there's still the eligibility that if he retires, that Tampa's able to claim that recap.
I think that is if they buy out Philip Myers, they get a cap credit next season. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah. So they traded McDonough away, so that was just capped up. But they also got Philip Myers, and if they buy him out, they get a $600,000 cap credit next season, and the season after they get a $600,000 actual cap hit. So I think the difference with that situation and the Duncan Keith situation is Keith's contract is one of those backdiving ones that was grandfathered in. And I think they're trying to avoid those penalties or those credits with those contracts versus the ones that have been signed more recently that are more up to date with the current CBA.
And from my understanding too, the way that teams are getting around the Duncan Keith style contracts is just signing players to, longer contracts with the expectation that they're going to buy them out. But
Well, if you're a player and you're smart, you wouldn't sign those contracts because that's bad for you. Because regardless of whether or not like you're like, okay, yeah, sure, you can buy me out later, that looks bad on your resume.
Oh, definitely.
Like it's not like they're NHL coaches where you can get fired and then get a job the next day. So,
I mean, unless they cash in and then someone signs them and they're, collecting on 2 different contracts. I don't know.
well, that's the dream right there. But there was also like I think it may have just been Jason Greger when I was listening to 1260, but he had a lot of things to say about trading Keith to like an Arizona. Arizona buys him out, and then Edmonton signs him for league minimum. Which like I would like, but I'm still like I understand there's precedent set that they'll allow that, but I also wouldn't put it past the NHL to be like, yeah, no, that's not happening.
So is the rule not that they have to wait 1 year before they can sign him, though?
I don't believe so, because if you look, the most recent example I believe was the Michael Stone one in Calgary, where Calgary literally bought him out themselves and immediately signed him to a new contract.
I feel like I just read about why that worked and why this one doesn't. But
Well, the Arizona one, that situation I think makes sense to me because you're not the team buying them out. It's similar to how Washington traded Brooks Orpik away. But I think it's the...
Sorry, that's the one I was thinking of. Sorry, not the...
It's the thought in the trade, because in that trade, for example, they traded Grubauer along with Orpik, and Grubauer was the centerpiece of that trade. Mm-hmm. And then they bought out Orpik, and then he got signed by... Washington or whatever. So yeah. I think that was the difference. It'd be like if maybe Edmonton traded Keith away with like Samorukov or something like that, with Samorukov being like the main piece of the trade. But if you look, the NHL's perception of that trade would probably be more so that it was the buyout versus the prospect that's getting traded along with Keith. But yeah. I don't know the official rule on how that works.
I was just reading through the tweet, and like it seems like everything is split on this is allowed or this is cap circumvention not allowed. Like,
well, I think it's the classic, like it follows the letter of the law but not the spirit of the law. I know I've said that before. But well, to me it's clear cut cap circumvention. Mm-hmm. But if there's nothing in the rule book against it, then why not?
Obviously, like these guys have got to start getting creative, especially with the expectation of the, how many years ago they expected the salary cap to reach X amount of dollars, and it hasn't come anywhere close. So,
well, I'm still frustrated that they didn't give teams compliance buyouts after COVID. I thought they would give each team one, similar to after the lockout, I think it was, where they gave each team multiple like compliance buyouts, where for anybody who doesn't know, that's just a free buyout. You can buy out a player and it has no impact on your cap whatsoever.
I was surprised at that too. Like there was zero effort on kind of the owner's side to, well, maybe it's not even the owner's side, whoever the fuck controls it, but like there was no relief for these teams. So people are stuck trying to find ways around these contracts that they signed 2 years ago with expectation that things will change. Like,
well, I think part of it is the players have to agree to like releasing these compliance buyouts, and a buyout isn't necessarily good for the players. So maybe they didn't agree to it and didn't want there to be those, because the players who are getting bought out, they get fucked over. But at the same time, if you buy out another player and you have that cap available, like a Draisaitl, for example, when his contract is up, suddenly there's more money free to pay him. Where he's like, yeah, sure, I love this.
No shit. That's honestly low-key the one like contract I'm worried the most for. Because he's going to be making double what he has been paid the last how many years.
You think he's going to be getting paid $17 million a year?
Well, I don't know. We got a pretty good 7.5% inflation rate to look at. And
that's true.
I've been playing whatever, but...
Well, I think
that's egregious.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later, but I would see maybe somewhere between the 10 to 12 range, because he's not getting paid more than McDavid, regardless of what he wants.
Yeah, like you mentioned, we'll get into that in due time. One shocking thing that I was very surprised to see was Vander Kane hanging out at the West Edmonton Mall on freaking Canada Day. Like, I was shocked he's still here. Just back to our previous point, Ken Holland had to jump on a flight to go to Kelowna. I'm sure he didn't have to, but to go meet with Mike Smith. Like, this guy who doesn't have any ties to Edmonton, no offense, but like when you make millions of dollars, you can probably go stay wherever the hell you want.
Well, do you think part of it has to do with the fact that he has a newborn child?
That's a good point.
That maybe they aren't doing much traveling this summer.
Maybe. Yeah, you know what?
I have some friends with newborns, and I know that they're not doing a whole lot of traveling right now, so outside of a couple-hour drive here and there.
I guess he's not chilling on beaches and stuff, and tough to take a
I don't see no money phones in that photo, so...
I mean, it was still a nice look. And
it was a great look, especially for a guy like him who has kind of a bad look off the ice sometimes.
Well, no
it's
shit.
Nice to see him giving back a little bit to the community.
Exactly. That was going to be my point. But just he could still be at home and be doing nothing here, but the fact that he's putting in time into the hockey community in Edmonton and like it's not even limited to just hockey. I've like probably seen, and probably a little bit is, you know, just I don't want to say PR because I truly believe like he's doing his best to give back, but I've seen more Evander Kane like community involvement stories than I've seen of any Oiler in the past 3 months.
That is true, and I do like to say that like since he's been here, there's been literally nothing that I've heard that's bad that's happened. I think he's made a great effort to do this, and if he continues to do stuff like this, I will believe it to be a lot more, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is because my brain's broken today, but...
Legitimate?
Yeah, more legitimate, yeah.
That's fair.
It feels less of a PR stunt when it happens more often. Yeah. And when he's not doing something bad, immediately following it up with this and be like, no, guys, I'm good. Don't worry about it.
I'm just glad it's not like from his own Twitter account and stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah, where he's just like, hey guys, it's me, Evander Kane.
It's like those guys on TikTok who are like, here, I'm going to go pay for this guy's grocery and then post it on their own page. It's like, does it count? Like, does it really matter then?
It does not. It'd be like if you're walking around, like, I think sometimes people pay for your coffee in line for a drive-thru. It'd be like, I will pay for the next 5 people's coffee, but you got to make sure to tell them it was so-and-so who bought this for them on this date, and they owe me a tax receipt.
No shit. Yeah, it's... good deeds can only go so far nowadays, hey?
Well, that's the effect of social media, right?
Yeah. Speaking of social media and some rumors, look at my segues, man.
Yeah, you're killing it. I'm sitting here trying to think of segues, and I'm like, I can't. I just can't, man.
When you're staring at spreadsheets all fucking day at work.
Can we stop recording these on like Sundays and Mondays after I'm like drinking on the weekends? That's my problem.
Sean's walking in every podcast with brain fog trying to... That's too funny. Yeah, no, we can do these whenever. Maybe one during. That could be fun.
We just need a sponsor to help us out, and we'll supply the beer, and we'll drink and talk about the Oilers. It's the dream.
Well, we'll see what happens like with this new season. Maybe we can do some live recording during games, etc. And
I'd love to do
so much
like
on
that.
So much on the horizon.
You guys should let us know. Anybody listening here, let us know if you'd be interested in something like that.
Yeah. We even talked about the possibility of a Discord channel where people can pop on and off, have a quick convo. Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, that's why we're taking that month off, is to come up with these things. Back to my segue. There was a couple reports just linking Claude Giroux in talks with the Edmonton Oilers. It sounds just like people are getting interested. Doesn't sound like anything serious is happening. Is there, out of 10, what is your probability that you could see Claude Giroux in an Edmonton Oilers jersey?
I would say like a 6 or a 7.
Okay.
There's been, I was just reading yesterday that there was a lot of teams and players are apparently, after last season, taking Edmonton a little bit more seriously as like a potential contender.
Right.
I think it's mostly from the performances of McDavid and Draisaitl through the playoffs. They're like, okay, like these guys know how to turn it on in the playoffs, so I think this team has a chance to win. There might be a few no trade clauses taking Edmonton off those lists, give them a chance if they're interested. But I would love Giroux. I love Giroux. For a while, it's funny, back in 2010 maybe.
Yeah.
I had an uncle who was in China, and he had access to a bunch of like knockoff jerseys. He's like, "What jersey do you want?" And for some reason, I was choosing between Giroux Philly or Lucic Boston.
Oh.
And I still have that Lucic Boston jersey gathering dust in my closet.
Oh boy.
I was very regretful of that choice. But I love Drew, and I think he's still a player who can contribute. He has that veteran presence. I think having a player like him come to this team is kind of exactly what you want, right? You look at teams over the past few years, they have these veterans come in and kind of help mentor the young guys through the playoffs. Even look at Keith coming here last year. I know it was a trade versus a free agent signing, but it's like Joe Thornton going to teams or Marlowe going to teams and things like that.
Well, and the question I was going to ask to kind of bounce it off is, do you think he's getting past his prime to a point where you're taking a valuable spot away from someone who can, really benefit on the upswing as opposed to the downswing? I guess it kind of depends on what kind of contract he's going to get.
I would say no. He's only probably would be signing 1 year, not like minimum, but like $3-4 million contract. I didn't look at his stats before this, but I know he hasn't been as good as he has previously proven to be.
But so I'm just looking at that right now. He was still at about 0.8, 0.9 point per game pace when he was playing on a very shitty Philly Flyers team this year.
Yeah. How many of those points were put up with Florida?
He put up 23 points in 18 games.
Okay.
So over a point per game.
It's looking more like a Pavelski contract than a Joe Thornton contract.
If Florida found a way to put a fucking power play goal in the back of the net, I'm sure his stats would be higher than 8 in 10 games. But
maybe that'll be Edmonton's selling point. They'll just here's our power play percentage. Here's Florida's power play percentage. We are not the same.
Okay. I know we're going down this huge Giroux rabbit hole, but who do you kick off the top line then?
Well, I don't think you'd play in the top line, but he'd play in the top 6. And it might be a good backup for if Kane can't sign here.
Okay.
Because I think he would sign for less than that. But I think of our team more of a top 9 at this point than a top 6. So our top 9 being McDavid, Hyman, Kane, Draisaitl, Yamamoto, Nugent-Hopkins, McLeod, Puljujarvi, which leaves one spot open.
Yeah.
Assuming we re-signed everybody. And currently, mentally, I have penciled in Holloway there. But I think having Giroux there with all those young guys on that team, really, I think that would be extremely beneficial to the team. Plus, if I remember correctly, he plays center and right wing, right wing is one of the bigger areas of concern on this team.
No, I think that'd be a good fit on the right-hand side. I didn't want to cut you off because you're going on a roll, and I figured I meant top power play unit, but that's all good.
You want to talk power play unit?
No, you're talking about the selling point being the power play.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, who'd you kick off the top unit?
Oh, you meant top unit of power play.
It's
I
all
thought
good.
You said top line. But yeah, top unit on the power play. I'm not selling him on the power play. That's just a joke.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're kicking anybody off that power play. With Hyman out front, and maybe you consider moving Nuge to the second unit, so we have because Giroux's the right hand shot, you'd have him on that left wall, and then it makes our second unit a little bit more formidable outside of just rush chances from McLeod skating.
Yeah, so welcome Claude Giroux to the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, you're sold on our team, right? You're listening to this, please, Claude, reach out to me.
We'll see what happens. But we have one big event to jump to before we get into any of the signings. I low-key love round 1 of the draft more than I like free agency, because the first hour is electric because you never know what's going to happen. You could have who is it? The Bruins spoil 3 picks in a row. You could have the Oilers trading their, Matthew Barzal and what the fuck else did they trade for Reinhardt?
Beauvillier.
Jesus Christ. So I just find there's so much flip-flopping in the first round, but the Edmonton Oilers head into the draft this Thursday with the 29th overall pick in round 1. First question for you is, do you think that pick gets moved?
If I were to put my money on it, I would say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And my preference would also be yes, because I don't think any player they're drafting in this position is going to make an impact in the next 4 years, which is the timeline that I'm looking at. And with that being said, it's kind of a shot in the dark with these depth picks in the later first round. So I don't know. I think any player we're picking doesn't make the NHL or impacted for 5 years. So
it's an interesting situation because the Oilers, whatever they're not gonna flip their first round pick for anything of substantial value.
Well, not in a 1-for-1 trade, but it's a good add with something to get a good player.
Yeah, the only thing, and we've seen it a couple times before, is I don't want them to see like trade a 29th pick for another second and a third or something.
Oh, you
like
want to you don't want to trade down in the draft?
I don't love, like, the Oilers have depth. They have guys on their roster. Just looking at the first round, like where they're sitting. To your point, I don't think there's anybody that's going to add any immediate value, and any of the people that are falling based off of the draft rankings that came out with TSN, like you're looking at like a Connor Geeky range type player, another center that has to fit behind how many other loaded centers on their team?
I just want the guy listed here because his name is great, and that is Rutger McGrodery. How do you pronounce that?
I have no idea.
It's such a ridiculous name, but his first name is Rutger, so I want him.
Yeah. We'll take Rutger. Yeah, so I don't know what the Oilers end up doing. I have a sneaky suspicion.
Subscription?
See, I was on a roll and now it's gone.
Sneaking suspicion of what?
I think the first round pick is gonna get used, and I think I'm gonna be let down about it.
I mean, if they don't trade it, that will be disappointing to me.
Well, I agree. I just find that the Oilers are so good, and I don't know if it's just because of the way things get leaked out on social media or whatever. It just feels like for the past umpteenth amount of years, the Oilers get backed into a fucking corner to the point where they need to make a trade, and they're overpaying the farm for it. Like,
well, to a degree, they've done that to themselves this year.
Yeah.
They're like, we need to make a change to our defense and our goaltending, and they're like, but what do we do? And everybody knows it. So if you're asking for a Connor Hellebuck, Jets are going to ask for the farm from you.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I would say that, honestly, out of 10, I would say that they're going to pick probably... There's a 70% chance I think that pick gets used. But I hope it's not. I hope they put a little gamble into their philosophy here.
Well, I know that Ken Holland's been preaching like the slow roll for a while.
Yeah.
But I think we're finally at the point where we can probably trade our first round picks. Like our past few year first rounders and our depth like picks from the second, third, fourth round, etc. Like those players are ready to start making an impact on the team. And like I said, anything we draft now, unless like I feel like if you're making this pick, you're expecting Edmonton to not be effective the next few years, and you're like setting yourself to be like, okay, we're rebuilding already. Yeah. And I'm just like, it just feels like it's sending the wrong message to the team.
I'm with you there wholeheartedly. So we'll see what happens. We've got a couple days, and then it's just going to be haywire for about a week and a half. But just a couple things before we wrap up here. I don't know if it's an official announcement. I know Tom Gazzola mentioned it a couple months ago, but the Oilers a couple hours ago just tweeted a picture of Nuge in the Royal Blues with the kind of the eyes emoji. So I don't know. Are they back? Are they back full time?
I would be maybe not full time. I like mixing up the jerseys. That's fun.
Do you honestly like those orange jerseys?
Like
the current ones, the current home jerseys.
I don't hate them. Like I think they're a little bit too neon-y sometimes, but I think there's certainly room to work with, like things that they could look at to alter the jerseys a bit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I understand why we got away from this blue.
Right.
Because this blue has almost become synonymous with the decade of darkness to some people. Where you see those jerseys, you picture Taylor Hall in that jersey, you picture Eberle in that jersey, and it just gives you PTSD. And like to a lot of people, they're like thinking 80s and stuff like that, so they say the blue or see the blue and they're nostalgic about it. But for me, it's a little frightening sometimes.
I'd be even just down with the Condors setup that they have.
I like the Condors jerseys.
Yeah.
They're pretty deadly.
But I cannot stand the orange jerseys. their home jerseys, and it's for one like very, very like minutia, like so petty. But the fact that they have 2 white stripes instead of 2 blue and 1 white in the middle just drives me fucking bananas. I don't know what it is.
I mean, that's fair. There's been a few times that I think their jerseys look a little weird. Even their jerseys they've been wearing in the playoffs, where they just have the single orange stripe on the bottom. I think immediately when they released it, I was like, that looks fucking horrible. And the thing I hate about it most, and this is, I guess, more from a marketing perspective, is those jerseys look terrible if you're not wearing the full equipment.
Oh, yeah.
If you're just wearing like jeans with a jersey at a hockey game, it looks like you're wearing a pajama shirt. Like, I don't think it looks like a hockey jersey when it's like that.
I saw when the Oilers went to go take pictures at the start of the year, people were freaking out. I don't know if you saw this floating on Twitter, but when they were taking their profile pictures, they took them in... They took a bunch of them, obviously, but they took them in their navy blues, but one of the reporters got a picture from far away. I think it was Puljujärvi, and he had the orange home socks on with the duo colored frickin' the binary colored alternates. Like, oh, it was not a good look. But
it doesn't sound good.
I don't know. What's your favorite Oilers jersey of all time?
I'm very nostalgic for the oil drop.
Yeah.
The like metal oil drop. Just because those were like the hype years for me when I was really, really, really getting into hockey at the time.
Yeah.
And I think I have a jersey in my closet with that logo on it, but
honestly, I think everybody our age has one.
Yeah, it's hard not to. Like, it may be a small from when I was 12, so it doesn't exactly fit me anymore, but it's still in there. I'm not throwing it away.
I love those jerseys. I hope they come back.
See, that's a good reverse retro jersey. Like,
yeah.
I didn't mind their jerseys, the reverse retros the past couple of years where they almost Edmonton looks like a popsicle skating around out there. But, like, I'm down to bring back other jerseys too because I don't think they look bad. I don't understand why people are afraid of them. It's like the Ducks being afraid of the Mighty Ducks logo for no good reason.
Yeah, that one drives me nuts, and I wonder if it has something to do with the Hollywood aspect of things.
The
but
Disney,
still,
where Disney's like hovering over their shoulder with that.
One of the best logos in hockey history, and they still never use it. But
I saw a really cool thing. I just want to shout out this person on Reddit. They posted
the Kachina stuff.
Yeah, the Kachina stuff. They posted like every team in the NHL made and designed like the Arizona Kachina jersey, but with like their mascots or whatever, and all of them look fantastic. The Oilers one was great too.
It was so fun to even go through and read the reason that he picked like the people or the the logo for things that they did. I was laughing my ass off because he said he was going to go with Blasty with Calgary, but he said he fucking hates it. So he just like moved on. I was like, that's brilliant. But no, that great point. I love that. When it comes to jerseys and logos and stuff, man, that's one of my favorite things about hockey is just I don't know, the creativity of it all.
So with all that, how does that make you feel about jersey ads?
Jersey, see, I don't like those. I was so happy that the Oilers were one of the very few teams in the league to not have a helmet ad even this year.
I thought they had Rogers on their helmet.
They didn't.
Was I just seeing things?
Maybe. And maybe it was for select jerseys then. I don't know. But the other cool thing that I loved is looking at... if you look at the Oilers helmets that they're wearing for their alternate jerseys, like the logo isn't a sticker, it kind of protrudes off the helmet.
I've seen that. Trust me, I was trying to make thumbnails for the YouTube videos, and I'm trying to like cut around that weird 3D logo, and I was like, why have I never noticed these before?
Oh, it's so cool. But yeah, I don't know. Are they full in effect this year?
I don't believe so. Maybe like shoulder patches, but I don't know. I'd prefer we don't look like the Swedish Elite League jerseys where I don't even know what the team is because there's so many ads. I'm like, I didn't know Tim Hortons had a team. Like, we're not fucking NASCAR car.
It'd be cool to see them just limit it to like a shoulder, or even just like the alternate side of the like where you keep the captaincy. I don't know.
Well, it needs to be like, yes, the alternate side of the captaincy, a small shoulder patch, maybe like, you know, the size patch where it says like large, extra large or whatever in that bottom left corner. Maybe you have a little ad on the bottom right corner.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the bottom of the jersey on the back or something like that. Just a small little logo there. Like, there cannot be anything that's large enough that takes away from the actual logo of the jersey. And I'm only saying this because I think they're stupid and there should be none. But with that being said, there will be some. So I'm trying to think of ways that will make it more bearable.
The other side of the pant, I guess you're cutting off then the pant logo. I don't know. Those things can't fucking add anything to a company in terms of revenue, hey?
Well, it's the company itself. It's not like I see TikTok on the Leafs helmets. I'm like, oh man, I want to go on TikTok.
Yeah.
It's the league gets money out of it. I don't really understand how marketing works and whole sponsorships and everything. Like, it's pretty rare when I see an ad like on the boards, even, say for example on the ice. I'm like, damn, I could really like call Telus right now and upgrade my internet.
Well, even when, like, I remember growing up and getting the hockey news or whatever, one of those like year in review books or something, you pull it out and you'd go and look and all of the helmet ads are like blurred out. So like you can't see logos and stuff. It's like it's done a full 180 and I don't know. Who knows? I could go on Jersey Talk for days and days, man. Finally, just our last point that you wanted to chat about.
Speaking of these old jerseys, Craig McTavish has signed as an assistant coach with the St. Louis Blues. So we're not going to be seeing any of him during intermissions this year.
See, I thought that Sportsnet had a pretty below average panel this entire year. The bright spots being, obviously, I love Kevin Bieksa. I love the banter he brings with Elliott, but the rest has been kind of less than stellar. But the one thing I genuinely love tuning into is hearing McTavish in the few games that he had in the intermission. I thought he added a lot of insight. He's low-key really, really funny. And I just don't know. I thought he had a longer career in him for that, but yeah, I mean.
Well, who's to say that he wouldn't just jump right back into it? Maybe he's getting a little bit more money from the Blues. But I will say, like, I know he had a rough tenure as GM here in that short amount where I think he was the one who traded Jeff Petrie away, so he kind of lost a little bit of respect for me on that one. But with that being said, he was a great coach for us. He's
absolutely
one of the all-time greats for coaches on this team. So I think he brings a lot to a team, and I wish him luck in St. Louis.
I also feel like the Oilers owe him a lot because I remember watching the interview right before they were about to draft Connor McDavid, and he got the shoes like pulled underneath of him, and Peter Chiarelli just got to walk in with like brand new keys to the Lambo, and like that's got to be the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah, but it's funny how Chiarelli gets handed keys to the Lambo and then crashes it one block down the road. Just sitting there scratching his head while it's on fire.
You know that plane video where like the plane takes off and does like a couple loops and it just goes straight down? Yeah, that's Peter Chiarelli teams. But yeah. I mean, he's got one cup. Anyway, I digress. That'll do it. We don't want to talk forever, otherwise we won't have shit to talk about for a week. But NHL entry draft coming up this Thursday, this Friday. Lots to talk about. Let's see if we have some new additions to chat about next week.